Yep, and that's us live. Well, good evening, Mr. Hoddinott. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Mr. Capaldi. In fact, it's this evening in Australia.
It is indeed, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And before we kick off, how is our adopted football team doing? The St Kilda Knights.
They're not.
They
the
were
Knights,
played. The St Kilda Saints.
The Saints. That's right.
Sorry, yes, St Kilda Saints. Yes, sorry, yes. They're actually playing tonight against Carlton, and they were absolutely hammering them at halftime.
Yeah, I haven't kept touch of the score. I was so excited to come on your channel. I just couldn't
of course
get myself going.
Yes.
Capaldi.
I mean, at least we're a lot better than we were last year, when I believe St Kilda finished bottom of the league.
Yeah, they haven't been all that successful in recent times. So so one of the advantages of being on the bottom, that any win is a good win, right? So
yes.
So as a supporter, you're happy even if you can get one win a year. So
well, that's right. Yes, yeah. I do feel sorry for poor Dr. Silverman. His team, the Crows, are
the Adelaide Crows.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and the Port are doing very well. So he's not very amused about that, as one would imagine. And as are quite a few people here in the UK, not particularly thrilled about Liverpool having won the Premiership. But never mind, we'll get over it.
You do. You tend to, don't you?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Yes. Yeah. Right. Talking to Dr. Siltman, we're fortunate in that he's agreed to join us on our chat with Dr. Richard Leo over the weekend. So I must admit, I'm quite looking forward to that. But I thought I'd kick off by asking you about events over the last few weeks that have piqued your interest.
Okay, so if we look over the last few weeks, I guess probably going back to the rally, the virtual rally weekend, which was my first time of hosting something live for 5 hours, which was quite the challenge for me, trying to drive the technology and create a meaningful conversation at the same time with my guests. But I did really enjoy it, and I tried to focus on the concept of being a supporter. That was where I tried to drive the conversation.
Which is where I completely failed, but never mind.
You know, we had a little bet. I forget what the outcome was. We had a little bet as to how many minutes into your broadcast would it be before you mentioned Captain Crunch. So so it wasn't long.
I'm going to say, I don't think we were talking minutes. I think we'd be talking halves of minutes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
But of course, I thought the weekend went well. You know, given that we didn't have the real rally, which is unfortunate, but it got a lot of interest. We got a lot of people submitting photos and videos, which we tried our best to broadcast across the social media platforms. Some we couldn't do because the files weren't suitable, or there was a few that we couldn't do, but we did the best we could to get most of them out there, and some of them were absolutely brilliant, which was lovely to see.
Yeah, I think some of them couldn't play because they were on a different sort of platform, as it were. You know, there was issues with trying to post them on say YouTube. They wouldn't post on YouTube, but they would post on in other places. Talking about technology, we nearly got you behind a green screen, but look forward to that. Look forward to that in the future.
Yes, that's something I've got to work out. You see how my camera goes sort of pretty wide here?
Yeah.
And I tried once with a screen. I've got it over there on the wall. I nearly had to be right up against my back to narrow the field of vision to a narrower length. So I've got to figure out how I do that.
Yeah. I'm approximately about a foot in front of the screen, and because obviously of that, I mean, obviously with your perspective at the moment, we're seeing from one door to the other, so we're seeing in the background, a view of about 12 feet. I mean, my background is actually about half a mile to a mile wide. But in actual fact, of course, because you are so close and the screen is that close, it's actually fine. It just because you're in Australia doesn't mean to say you need an extra wide green screen. Don't worry about that.
Well, one day I'll just pop up with it there, and I'll surprise you. I'll be down in the Seychelles or on the Serengeti
yes
lands. You know, you never know where I'll be. But the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine, we were in a Zoom conference last week, and Alex had even managed to get a little video to play on his green screen, so it actually looked as if he was in the Bahamas, because you had the sea actually rolling in and the wind in the trees. It was brilliant.
Oh, very nice.
And I was like green with envy when I saw what he'd been able to do.
Was that a pun there, Mr. Capaldi?
Not at all.
So, but to continue on with an answer to your question, what I've been up to. So the following week after the virtual rally, of course, which was not this week just coming to an end for me, but next week, the week before, sorry, was when Kathleen Zellner made her reply to the state's reply.
Yes.
Which was, you know, God. I mean, if you knew nothing about the case at all, you would be in awe of the way she constructs things. She's so good in her logical and technical way of putting things together. I thought it was brilliant. And at the very minimum, Stephen should receive an evidentiary hearing. I mean, I can't think of. I always try to play the devil's advocate when I look at things like this and think, well, what could be the reason why they wouldn't even consider it? And the only reason I realistically can come up with is, you know, corruption. And I don't believe the appeals court would do that. So that, as I've always said, or repeated, I guess I should say, is that justice has appeals as part of the process. It's not a privilege, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
And that process has a formula for determining whether something is deserving of a hearing, and the evidence, provided it's reasonably constructed, is expected to be presumed to be correct. That is the evidence given by Stephen and his lawyers, and then the evidentiary hearing is the mechanism through which you can, you know, attest the veracity of that evidence and in a proper court environment, and that becomes part of the record. So I can't see any reason why there shouldn't be an evidentiary hearing. Mind you, I could see every reason why they might consider letting him go, but just like they did with Ryan Ferguson, the appeal court just released him straight away. So anyway, we'll see. I'm not going to be overly enthusiastic about that option because I just know what happened in the past, but an evidentiary hearing has definitely got to be on the cards. So that's been very interesting to read Kathleen Zellner's submission. I've also had, very sadly for me in the last week or so, I feel so bad about this, 2 missed calls from Stephen, who's trying to ring me. And one, my phone was on silent, and by the time I got to it, it had hung up. And I can't ring him back, so, you know, and there was another time where there was just a little technology thing going, so I'm really, really disappointed that happened. But I'm told by others who do speak to him, like Sandra, for example, that he's very positive and up and looking forward to the matter being looked at by the appeals court. So, and he's physically and mentally well as well. So.
Yeah, I suppose in fairness to Steve, it's not as if you can just text you and say, listen, Mark, I'm going to phone you in an hour's time or something, is it? You know, it's...
no, like... They have these phones that he doesn't even know when they're going to be handed around for them to use.
Yeah.
And if he calls and there's a missed call, he's not allowed to make another phone call for 15 minutes. That's if the phone's available. So it's not like you and I picking up a phone. Exactly. So I feel pretty bad about that. But anyway, most importantly, he's well, and that's the good news. So. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you as well was who is it that's actually handling the case now, as far as the state is concerned?
I presume the names that you see if you look on the front of Kathleen's latest submission, the representatives for the state are listed there. I forget their names, to be honest. They're none of the familiar names we're familiar with. So I think there's 3 of them, or at least 2 anyway. So I'm going to try to find those. Are those names important to the conversation? I can find them.
No. I know who the main lawyer is. It's somebody called Lisa Comfer.
Ah, yes, that name. Yes.
Yep. And I mean, guess how much I've managed to find out about her and her sort of record, and any news article about her. I haven't been able to find a thing about her.
I was going to say not much, because I didn't think you'd ask a question if you had.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even find like a photograph of her,
Yeah.
And so it does seem to me as if I would certainly say that for those that say that Fallon's dropped out, obviously Kratz can't have anything to do with it. Norm Garn is he retired now? I think he's retired.
Yeah,
I think he's retired. But I mean, it's like this. They also had some other girl that was with Lisa Comfer, and she withdrew, didn't she? And so so I get the impression that the state are putting very, very little effort into this now.
I think so. I mean, if they are proper judicial people, really, seriously, if they are, they would know already that Stephen is entitled to an evidentiary hearing.
Yes.
And as we know, even Tom Fallon, who we have a lot of, let's say, not very nice things to say from time to time about his performance in the trial, but even he had previously agreed with Kathleen Zellner that an evidentiary hearing would be necessary. It would need to be scheduled for about 4 weeks. So, and he was like front and center as far as the case and the facts of the case are concerned. So there's no reason why there shouldn't be the hearing. There's every reason why there should be a hearing. And I think those justice officials who get signed to Stephen's case must think, oh my God, what did I do wrong to be given this to do? There's no win for anyone in that for them. So
sure. As one of our commentators have pointed out, of course, yes, you've got the name Josh Call on the front, who is, of course,
his Attorney General.
But here's a question for you. Steve doesn't email on the tablet like Brendan?
No, I forgive me that I don't know the correct answer to this, but I have a feeling, I could be wrong, that tablet thing is not available in his prison because he's in a maximum security. Brendan's in a medium security.
That's right. Yep.
Now I might have that wrong, but I've never heard Stephen speak about that at all in any time that I've been with him. So, which has been over 35 times I've visited him there. So I just don't think it's available to him.
Sure. Okay, here's another question for you.
Yes.
If there is a hearing, do you think it will be televised?
That's a very good question. I think in the interest of justice, it should be. Yep. I'm not sure what the laws are about. I think in the end, the judge has the final say on that, but I think he would have to have a very good reason not to televise it. And given that the previous cases were televised, I can't see what sort of reasoning he could come up with. So.
Certainly, following a few of Jerry Buting's tweets, Jerry has certainly mentioned that Jerry seemed very, very optimistic that there will be an evidentiary hearing, a change of judge, and that obviously it'll need to be televised. So
I mean, this is a process that it gets all quite emotional because of all the bad behavior that's gone on, but this is a process, and the process needs to be above board, accountable, capable of scrutiny. If Stephen wins his evidentiary hearing or loses, and if the state wins or loses, they may well want to take it higher to the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. And in order to do that, you need the record. That is the record of what went on in the previous hearing. That is the evidentiary hearing. And so you need everything to be really squeaky clean in terms of the conduct of that hearing, because justice isn't served for either party if that's not done properly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And looking further ahead, I can't help thinking, and I don't know what you think about this, that some of what Angela Sukovich has done to try and shut it down, and to try and basically to obstruct the justice process here, I can't help think. Well, I certainly hope, and I can't help thinking that at some point she will face some sort of reprimand for her behaviour.
Yes, her behaviour in, as you say, obstructing the process or failing to properly deal with it would probably be a more accurate assessment. Is also reprehensible. But the only other thing that comes into my mind, I wish it wouldn't, but I wonder who else was instructing her to behave that way.
Yes.
So maybe some sort of consequences of that behavior may not happen simply because it may expose other people who were, if you like, party to the crime, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, there must surely be some sort of lines of communication between, say, Calumet and Angela for her to shut the case down within a couple of days of Tom Fallon saying, I'll arrange with Calumet to get the RAV4 for you to test.
Yeah, exactly.
That just seemed very, very bizarre.
Yes. Obviously we believe in Stephen's innocence, and any clear-thinking person should. But what disappoints me the most is their willingness to openly endeavour to thwart the process of justice, which we need to be able to rely upon. We need it to be reliable and consistent and fair. And that's what concerns me the most about what's happened in the lower courts in this matter. That was just pretty much thrown out of the window by lower court judges. They were happy to play the game that was going on, in my opinion.
Sure. There's another question here. Just confused about the agreement between Tom Fallon and Kathleen Zellner. Is that just hearsay, or do we have documentation? Well, no, we have the word of Catherine and the agreement by Tom Fallon.
Yes, I mean that matter was a matter as part of the televised process of MAM2. Those and I believe Kathleen Zellner had her law partner with her at the time.
Steve Richard.
Yes, and so I don't think there's any doubt about the accuracy of that. There was an agreement. Yeah. And you might remember in MA2, she actually speaks to some other legal colleague to ask them what should they do about that. And he said, when they found out about the ruling of Angela Sukovich, and this other outside colleague, recommended that she write this submission, I guess, to the judge, stating that there had been agreement with Tom Fallon. And that was the thing that Tom Fallon then said he wouldn't co-sign, but he wouldn't object to it, right?
That's right.
So there was no questioning of whether that agreement existed.
Yeah. So. And I think there was also some discussion, wasn't there, later on in MAM, where just after that point, where Steve is talking with Kathleen Zellner, and she's explaining to him that they're not wanting. I think the term was to backdoor the state. Yeah. But I thought that's very honourable of you, Kathleen Zellner, because I think most of us would have definitely hurled a load of abuse at the state and the judge for basically duping her.
Yes. Yeah. Kathleen Zellner is a very proper person.
Yeah.
She'll have her anger and her annoyance at behaviour, but she doesn't. She still believes in the system, and the system isn't broken. It's the people who are in it, in terms of this matter, that is the problem. Yeah,
yeah. The fact that she then spoke to Tom Fallon after that about it, it suggests to me that I think, was it not a case that in fact Tom Fallon was just as surprised, which goes to show that once he'd done that phone call to Calumet to say, we need you to get the RAV4 prepared because we're going to have an evidentiary hearing, we're going to look at this, then it was a case of shut it down. By the way, you'll never guess who's just arrived through the door.
Your darling wife?
Yeah. I better let her have a word with you, because if I don't, I'll be in big trouble. So,
she's been down on the beach sunbaking behind you there.
Absolutely, yes. and I've been the mug that's had to go back and forward from the pool bar to get her the cocktails that she wanted. Anyway, I'll let you have a quick word with her. Oh, okay. Right, she's just going to wash her hands. She's been, I don't know where she's been. She's been somewhere, but I've been busy this morning, so yeah.
I mean, the thing I want to say about the RAV is, I think I saw a question. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat as well.
Sure.
The RAV of itself isn't biological evidence, but it contains biological evidence. So
exactly.
I think that means it's in situ location of that biological evidence is part of the evidence. So the RAV needs to be preserved for that reason alone. Because you can't take the swab, you can't take the blood stain off the back inside cargo door and put it somewhere else. It's only relevant as it is in the RAV4.
Yeah.
But I still have my doubts whether that RAV4 still exists now.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, and as far as I know, I believe Kathleen Zellner believes that it still exists. But
in a container buried underground.
Yeah, in Calumet County. So
yeah.
So it'll be interesting if it doesn't, right? Yeah. Imagine if it doesn't, or if it exists in a modified form, or with missing bits, or who knows what, or if the parking light that fell out is no longer with it, right?
Yeah,
all that sort of stuff, So because I never understood really in an honesty and justice way why they were refusing at the time she got that other evidence to test, why they weren't going to hand over the light in the car at that time. I mean, evidence.
It must be that it is in the car, as you say. It must still be there in the car, and it needs to actually be dug up.
Well, it's only it's not like buried under earth. It's in a slot in the ground. It's
right.
Like an underground storage area, as far as I'm told.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So, but anyway, we'll see. I mean, let's bring it all out for everyone to see, and if there's nothing there, there's nothing. If there's nothing of value to the evidence, fine. But if it's missing, like the bones were missing, which if we were to learn that, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying that is the case, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And we'll see. But
because obviously what Kathleen Zellner was given that was available was from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, wasn't it? It was in fact, Kathleen Zellner would have had the pleasure of going and meeting Sherry Culhane, who's still there.
Yes, I still can't get over. It's fascinating on so many levels, that the testing of item FL, the bullets. The laboratories, the Microtrace, I think it's called, who did that work and discovered that there was, wood in the bullet, and that must have been an awful revelation for the state, right?
Oh yes.
It totally unraveled the alleged story of how she was killed. How Teresa, I should say, not she. How Teresa was killed.
Absolutely, because no one was meant to know about that, were they? No one was meant to watch Making a Murderer. No,
they didn't even realize themselves that evidence was there. They the crime lab would have been given that bullet that was certified that it had DNA on it that of a type that belonged to Teresa. And someone independent certified that was true. Here's the physical evidence. Here's an expert saying it's got DNA. No one examined the lead on the top of it that was examined in the way that Microtrace did, and they thought, oh my God, this is like, it wasn't like they knew it was there and they were trying to hide it. I think if they did know it was there, they probably wouldn't have handed it over.
Absolutely.
Probably. So,
well, scary stuff for the state. And talking about scary stuff, I'll pass you on to the boss. Here you go. Here you go.
If you don't come back after that comment, I'll understand.
You'll understand. Yes. Sit down, I'll hand it to you. We're in the Caribbean at the moment.
Oh, God, wish.
Watch your feet with the cables there. And that's it. There you go. You want a drink?
I'm fine.
What do you want?
Cappuccinos.
Oh.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, Mrs. Capaldi. I'm well. How are you? How's life in the Caribbean?
Oh, you know what? I wish I was there. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice seeing you too.
Yeah. Is your husband behaving?
Oh, just the usual, you know. He just sits here in his chair, and there's a dent in this chair now. He sits here that often.
I know. He's like he's a YouTube warrior these days.
He certainly is. Earning lots of money. That's why we can afford to go to the Caribbean.
Oh, right. Yeah. On a virtual holiday, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, no, this is me officially on holiday now for 5 weeks.
Oh, okay. Yep. Vacation for school, right?
Yeah. So that's I don't have to worry about being online when I'm supposed to be at work. Can I ask you
some boring but interesting questions for everyone who's listening in? And that is, you're in Scotland, of course, but tell us a little bit about what COVID is. Where are you at with COVID in Scotland in terms of, what you can do and can't do and travel and all those sorts of things?
So we're in phase 2.
Yeah,
is what they're calling it. We're still only supposed to travel within 5 miles of your door, if possible. Obviously, if there's family a little bit further out, you're able to do that. The death rate is very low. In fact, I think yesterday there was only 2 or maybe 4, but up until that point there'd been 3 days without any deaths. So the BGH, whereas local areas have had no deaths for a few weeks now, so that's been really quite positive. To the extent where they've just got 1 ward that's COVID at the moment, and paid quite a lot of the staff off that they'd taken on contract. That's where I've been at just now. Was seeing one of my friends who'd worked for 2 months in the unit, and he was saying that, obviously it was quite harrowing, but he was saying the death rate through that time at BGH was 40 in the borders, which is obviously, as much as it's horrible to lose anybody to this disease, it would have been very, very fortunate, know. But testing's been no great at all, to be honest. You can actually get tested for free if you want. I suppose people in healthcare and stuff like that, it's quite important for them. But he was saying that the whole time that he worked on the unit, he was never offered a test and was never took a test, which he was a bit surprised about.
One of the things I'm interested to know, Eunice, is, and I'll give you a little background to why I'm asking this question, is that in Australia, we have 25 million people. We are a physically big place, but we're a very urban country. The great majority of the population are in the big capital cities, like Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth. We've only had, with due respect to those that did die, we've only had 104 people die across the country. That number is only, I think, maybe no one's been added to that total for a good number of weeks.
Right.
But very early on, the nation took on board this issue that they needed to be responsible about this matter, and so we're much more open now. We still have some restrictions, and they are important ones to have, but there is much more things happening now that are within rules. And it surprised me a little, I guess, when I followed the UK and especially in the US, that it didn't seem to me like from a leadership point of view, that the Prime Minister of the UK, not as distinct from Scotland, was taking it seriously enough early enough, because and we see that same problem in the US to a certain degree as well. And I just wondered whether you thought that was a valid observation or not, because it didn't make sense to me. The numbers of deaths that were going on in the UK were dramatic, in numbers. I don't actually remember what the actual number is there at the moment. Do you know the number in the UK?
It's over 40,000.
40,000, and you have we're an island. We can control our borders a bit better, even though the UK is an island in a sense. But you have about 2.5 times the population we have, but 100 deaths compared to 40,000. I mean, that mathematically doesn't make sense, right?
It really doesn't make sense, and you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the biggest criticisms of the government the British government, is that they didn't lock down a lot quicker than what they actually did. And putting like quarantine in for people travelling was only put in 2 weeks ago. I
know, I couldn't believe that when I heard that was only just happening there. We've had that for 3 months here now. So.
Yeah, but then they've done that. But then this last week, they're actually saying that they're making these bridges so that people from France, and we can travel to France without coming back and quarantining, and Spain and a lot of the European countries. And they're actually saying there's going to be an announcement today that there's going to be more countries added to that bridging policy, where basically they're coming in and not getting tested and not having to quarantine for the 2 weeks afterwards, which I just think it's just, I think that personally, I think that Boris Johnson just wants to do herd immunity and let's just get rid of people. That's my opinion of it. I think that if I'd been up to Nicola Sturgeon, that Scotland would have been locked down a lot quicker than what the UK, what England was going to be. And the same with Ireland and Wales. They would have went with what Nicola Sturgeon was saying, because they're very much in agreement to what Scotland's saying. But for some unknown reason that Boris Johnson is saying, they're saying that they should have been locked down at least 3 weeks prior to what we actually were. Yes. And that would have made a massive difference.
The only only transmissions that are happening in Australia are the ones that are coming from Australians returning overseas, and they're in compulsorily government-controlled hotel quarantine for 14 days. And so the only new cases are coming from those that are tested from there. But interestingly, which is an important thing for every country to realise, is that in Victoria, which is the southern state of Australia and the second most populated state, they've just had a little spike of more new cases, and they've traced it back to security people improperly interacting with people who are in quarantine in these hotels, right? Actually physically together, some a little bit more salacious than I would rather comment here, but actually together, and then those people going back into their communities and infecting their communities. So in Victoria, they've had to lock down a certain number of suburbs, and people can't move in and out of there except for really essential purposes. And the point of mentioning that is for us all to be really vigilant, that you need to be constantly careful here. It's not just, that's not a problem anymore. It can transmit very quickly if you're not careful.
Absolutely. And I think that, again, in England, Leicester's been one of the biggest things. They're back on lockdown. This is the first time that they've done an actual city, where there's been a massive outbreak there, and they've closed them down within a certain radius of the actual city. And they're saying,
huge Asian community.
Yeah, Leicester, because it's a huge Asian community as well.
Yeah.
But we had the situation that when lockdown first started, for example, Prince Charles and his entourage decided to come to Balmoral, and they brought the disease up with them.
God.
I mean, the whole
One of the staff was.
the village that is near to Balmoral, they were inundated with cases. And it was because Prince Charles had decided to come to Balmoral and bring his entourage with him. And apparently the local shops in the area were bought out of everything because they needed it for the royals. And I mean, I've not got a affinity with that, you know, like with the royals. I think that they play a part to a certain extent. But I do think when there's something like that, you know, they were going on about Dominic Cummings coming up to Durham to his second home and seeing his family and stuff. Well, what's the difference between him and Prince Charles, for example? Exactly. You know, I think that needs to be looked at. The other thing was that when we had that big outbreak in Skye at a nursing home, it was the same situation. And what had happened was that the staff that were local, that had been working in the place, they'd gone down with the disease, and they'd had to call in people from their other the company down south had brought staff in, and it was them that brought it up, and that's where that outbreak came from as well. Yes. So it's like when we're talking about particularly the borders, I mean, we've talked and kind of laughed about Nicola Sturgeon saying that we should put a lockdown on the borders at the moment because we're so lucky in Scotland, you know, the numbers are coming down, reducing every day and everything, the deaths and cases. But as soon as the borders are open on the 15th, for example, that people coming up to their second homes or caravanning or, you know, camper vans, driving through and all the rest of it. And vice versa, you know, if there's people from Scotland going down south, they could be taking it down south. And it's, I personally think that there could be a case that why don't we close the borders? And going back to the quarantine thing, they're not putting people, they're saying to people to go into quarantine for 2 weeks, but they're saying they're monitoring it, but they're not putting them into like hotels, as you say, especially quarantine for people. They're expected to do it in their own home. So I don't know how they could possibly police that.
No, you can't effectively, not at all.
Not at all. And I just think it's ludicrous to even consider that people would be, you would hope they would be responsible. But
I guess all I can tell you is my experience, and that is, we're far from perfect, and there have been some things that have gone wrong here, but generally speaking, the public have adopted the approach, no, we have to be part of this solution. And mind you, our government has been very supportive and generous in terms of economic support for people who couldn't go to work and other things like that. But if you're waiting for the government to come up with a magic bullet to solve all this in one swoop, it's not going to happen. People have to play their part.
Absolutely.
And being conscious of social distancing and touch hygiene and all those things that are important, until we absolutely have a vaccine, there's always a risk there. So
yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I've just the guy that I've been to see, he's the guy that owns the salon that I work in with the hairdressing, and he's opening up a week on Wednesday. But for example, I'm really fortunate that working in education, I've had my job all the way through and getting paid.
Yeah.
But like for him, he had to go and work in the hospital to cover, getting paid for the hairdressing. But he was saying that the space that he's got within the salon, it can only actually hold 2 members of staff. And for him and for the other girl who are both full-time, that's their income. And he said, I'm not being disrespectful to you. I know that you want to get back on board. He says, but actually we're going to have to leave you for maybe a month or something before you're able to come back into the shop once things kind of calm down a wee bit, because we've not got the room to do the 3 of us within the salon.
Yes.
So that's cutting. It means that he's not getting an income from me, because obviously I pay for my chair. He's only getting himself and the other girl that's working for him. So, he says, his first day is only able to have 5 clients in because the time it'll take to do the hair is not allowed to have anybody coming in overlapping, whereas normally you would have, you'd put a colour on, you'd have somebody else coming in, you put a colour on them or cut them, and then they would go away, and you've got all this. This is, but actually it's only allowed to have one person for him, a client at a time, and the same for the other girl.
Yeah.
So they're in a way losing business. Yes. Even though they're going to have to, it's going to take a lot longer to get the people through, because in between every client, you're having to change your PPI, you're having to wash the shop down and all the rest of it. So you've got all these considerations, all these things have to be taken into consideration. And he says, I really don't know how it's going to work. Mm-hmm. He says, I just hope that it's going to be successful, but he says, time's going to tell, it's really difficult for them.
Yes.
So
it's just one of those things that this is where you need leadership and statesmanship, and where you have people putting enthusiasm into the population to work together. It's how we should work. It's how we work supportively, and helping others that are in a less fortunate position than yourself. Hello, who's that crazy guy there?
I know. You see what he's put up, Mark?
What's he put?
Do you think that Mark knows about hair colour?
I do. Not that I use it, but not yet anyway. I've still got my natural colour here for the moment.
Well, Paul keeps going on about how is it all right for me to put a colour on my hair, but it's not all right for him.
I think you should give him some orange, Jimmy hair. So,
he'd
be a true Scotsman, right? That'll be good.
Absolutely, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
But no, it's all up in the air. I mean, we were supposed to have our local festival last week, all the border festivals, and I know that we're not the only place in a situation where festivals and concerts and all the rest of it have had to be stopped. But it's been, it's quite. It doesn't feel like it's like our holiday time, because we usually celebrate our festival at this time and then we go on holiday, and so it just seems a bit surreal, the whole environment, the whole everybody going through what we're going through. It just seems really surreal, and it's quite hard.
It is difficult, but I guess it's how you deal with it really that matters. Because nothing we can do can change it. Certainly not, some of the behavior we've seen in the recent past in the US about people being frustrated about lockdown. I mean, gee whiz. I mean, I love the United States dearly, but when I see some of the stuff that's going on over there, and the rates of death and the re-spiking of events, and people abusing and avoiding the rules, that's not. You need leadership to bring people together. Unfortunately, you don't get that there these days. Not at a national level anyway. So
I know, and it's I totally agree with, like, obviously that American guy getting killed and stuff, and all,
George Floyd,
and just what happened there, but the whole impact of that, people going out and protesting and all the rest of it, that's going to have a massive effect on the COVID, because people in such close proximity to each other, and there's different ways that it could have been done, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't just in America, it was over here. It was
here too. Yeah.
When you look at Hong Kong this week, what's happening over there, and they're doing all their, it totally and utterly scares the shit out of me. Seeing all these people, I'm like, oh my goodness. Channel? Sorry. It just really frightens me, because I just think, do these people not realise that? I know they've got points to make, but you can make it in a different way.
You can make it in a more powerful way by doing it differently. I mean, we have, a big celebration in Australia every year. It's a commemoration, not so much a celebration, is what we call Anzac Day. It's our equivalent to our Veterans Day.
Yes.
It's on the 25th of April, and it's a really big, important day in Australia's sense of who it is. And it's usually comprised of dawn services, remembering the fallen in the various wars. Well, this year they couldn't have that. So what did people do? They walked to their end of their driveways in their homes and lit candles and stood at their driveways at 5 a.m. in the morning as their way of maintaining the respect for the day, but couldn't be together other than with your own family. Imagine what that looks like in a suburb when every driveway down the street has got a candle lit.
I know.
There are very powerful ways you can still get your message across without jeopardizing the health of others. So,
and another example of that was when we did the Thursday night thing with the NHS. Everybody going out and clapping for a minute. All over the country that was happening, and it was so powerful.
Yes.
Everybody doing that, it was just amazing. And like Paul was out playing the accordion, other people, you could hear music going, and people doing, and that had such an amazing effect on the whole country. If people had done stuff like that, that would have been a lot more powerful.
Yes, exactly.
To show, rather than going out and just being, I just think, it's like they don't value their own life, never mind anybody else's life.
Yes. And, and the more the lockdown is there, as I said, here in Australia, we have a much improved situation than it has been in terms of work and what you can do. That gets people back at work. By keeping the rate of infection down, it enables you to move to other stages in dealing with it. That gets people back in work. It improves mental well-being. It improves a whole lot of things.
Without a doubt.
And it only takes a couple of reckless people not abiding by the rules and infecting the community, and away it goes again.
I know. Yeah. It has been. I mean, I don't know whether there will ever be a vaccine. They're saying that they don't know. Hopefully there will be. I mean, apparently Donald Trump's bought up all these tablets. For them. It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? That, but you don't know the effect of that. Whether it's going to be worthwhile or not, you just don't know.
Well, let's hope he's right.
Yeah, but then he's bought them all up, and it means that nobody else can get them.
He's a billionaire. Here we go. Stop arguing. He's a billionaire.
I do feel, without having any basis, a sort of scientific basis for it, I do feel that some level of vaccine will be created and ready for use sooner than we think. That's my feeling. Why do I feel that way? Is because there's such a concerted worldwide effort to find a solution to this that put powerful minds together, and they will come up. And there are many places doing that already, and in the testing phase, they've come up with the vaccine, they're testing it now. So, but I think it'll still be a bumpy ride to Christmas, and it'll probably be in the new year that we'll see something more significant happen. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I do hope so. Because there's bound to be, there's got to be something that, help. I mean, the biggest thing as well is that, like, the effect of the aftermath of it. People that have had the disease and then, still having problems with their lungs and, stuff like that. There's obviously some people that they've obviously come scot-free through it.
Yes.
And they're going to be left with other ailments as such going forward. And it's just, grateful that they've lived through it. But then what else have they got to live through?
Yeah.
Well, Paul's saying I've got to.
Two, because I've started two next people.
What's he doing? Is he moving house or something in the background? I can hear.
He's saying I've only got a minute left because he's going on. He's teaching at 2 o'clock.
All right. Okay.
So I'll have to come out of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And back into good old Gala.
So is he coming back online before he goes, or what's doing?
Yeah, he's going to come back online. But nice speaking to you.
You too, Eunice. You take care, and
yeah, you take care.
Congratulations on your husband. So.
Oh, I know. Gosh.
He takes you on a tour of the world every day. He comes online.
It does. It does. Take care. Nice speaking to you, Mark.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
You say to Eunice, quick chat, couple of minutes, 5, 10, what, 20? No, that's 25 minutes later. So anyway, I'm gonna quickly say cheerio and look forward, obviously, to catching up with you on Sunday morning, your time, 9 o'clock, midnight for me. Yeah,
no, you're brave,
yeah, 9 o'clock. Well, midnight for me on a Saturday night. That's par for the course, because I would often be, on a Saturday night. Usually, I would be gigging, and midnight is about the time that at a function I would be playing Auld Lang Syne. So midnight is no hardship for me, certainly of a weekend. Although I do apologise that the dude wanted me to join him and Mitch for last night's chat on the Daniel Holtzclaw case.
Yes.
Which I suspect will be the next thing once Stephen and Brendan are taken care of. That'll be the next one to try and look at.
Yes.
And it just struck me as how bizarre, the sort of extremities of those two cases. On the one hand, you've got police so determined to cover up their own corruption, and yet on the other one, you've got, in the other case of Daniel, you've got somebody being prosecuted, charged, prosecuted, and convicted on the most whimsical of evidence. It's what I think what we're saying all along is, if there's reasonable doubt, there's reasonable doubt. We just have to look into these things, don't we? Anyway, I'm going to shut up and let you finish off.
Well, my final word is something I've always rabbited on about, and that is that I'm hoping that the next big project, Americans are very inventive and creative people, and they invest a lot of money in sending people and machinery to the moon and other planets. Let's take even a minutiae of that amount of money, invest in fixing the criminal justice system along the way, and we could probably name 4 or 5 things, which we don't need to tonight, that would go a long way to restoring faith and confidence in the system. So absolutely.
Well, yes, in October, which it seems a long way away, but it maybe isn't that far away. We're looking forward to the is it the wrongful conviction weekend?
Yes, I forget what the date is, but I think it's early October sometime. So yeah.
Excellent.
Time.
Yep.
All right, anyway, mate,
thank you very much once again for your time, and glad we were able to catch up with you. We must get you sorted out with the green screen at some point. The big problem with the green screen? I can't wear my Aussie shirt.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. I tried it. I tried it the other week, and of course it didn't work. And the dude was most delighted that I tried it and found that it didn't work. Egg on my face. Never thought. Green screen, green top.
Yeah, well, if you wore total green, you'd just be a head, right? All we'd see would be a head, a bobbing head inside the green, right?
Can you imagine how scary that would be?
I know, that's right. All right, mate, I'll let you go. You got to go.
You mean a bit like this?
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Ready for my haircut.
There we go. Hello, Paulie.
Hello.
See? That's all we need.
Okay.
And on that note,
yes,
it's good night from me, and it's
goodbye from him. Cheerio.
See you, mate. Bye.
Cheers. Cheers.